just came up with another bright idea. I am so smart, suddenly it just appeared. There's a light above my head, sometimes white and it's sometimes red. Bright ideas make it glow, and very soon the rest of the world will know. I just came up with a really bright idea. I am so smart, suddenly it just appeared.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us as we explore some key concepts that will make your virtual events certainly more fun and hopefully more successful. We have so much that we have to cover today. So what I'm going to do is jump right into it. We only have 30 minutes, but we're going to give you what we believe are 3 solid concepts. In addition, we've added 30 minutes, an addendum of case studies at the end, immediately after this. So if you can stick around to hear from actual organizations who've completed or are in the middle of hosting their events, as well as from our friends Donor Perfect, who have experienced virtual event sponsor and are a leading database software company for nonprofits. You're going to learn a lot from them. I'm Sondra Dellaripa, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Phil Simon, as well as Harvest Vice President Scott Selig, who will be monitoring chat. So feel free to use chat liberally today, and we will try to get to as many questions as we can. If you have something specific about your event that you don't find us answering here, feel free to call us or drop us an email, and we're always happy to take a call and work with you one-on-one in some of those issues. So in March, we all went into isolation, and many of us in the industry realized how disastrous this could be. One of the things that we found out is that we didn't know as much about video conferencing as we thought we did. So we realized that our community gatherings, our galas, our luncheons, our annual meetings all needed to be different. And we kind of paused, and for most of us, our response was, what? So yes, we were taken by surprise and thrown into this whirlwind of technology. But as nonprofits, we adapted, and we continue to adapt. We at Harvest are big advocates of virtual gatherings, even before the pandemic. And after the last 7 months, we're convinced that virtual is an amazing tool for your community development. So for the next 30 minutes, we're going to jump into key concepts of virtual events and hopefully get us all inspired to start and keep virtual as an essential tool. So we're going to start by focusing on the capabilities of virtual conferencing. We'll move into why, starting with why a virtual event is essential, and how focusing on your participants' journey will guide you in the more important factors of construction and production, marketing, and communication. So let's begin with what we can and what we cannot expect to do in virtual events. First, not everything fits, but most things can fit if we modify it. So right now I'd like to open the chat. And for the attendees and even our presenters that are here today, just share some things that you're concerned about right now that you think might not fit and you don't want to lose. Drop them in there. We're going to take a look at them in a little bit. Don't be discouraged if you think there is something that seems impossible to do in virtual. Creativity is where we need to live right now in designing and producing your virtual event. One of the things that we know is that our virtual events are extensions of our community's engagement and what we're sharing with them, including resources. So getting creative about our virtual events requires us to box up how we've always shared experiences and resources and unleash that. What could we do here? So for instance, you can't do a wine tasting in virtual as we've always done it. Tables of wine and little cards, but we can modify it, right? Imagine a wine tasting where your sponsor sends every guest 2 bottles of wine, a different wine before the event. And on the evening of the event, the guests each get a few minutes of screen time to review their wines in small breakout wine tasting rooms by wine type or region, or maybe they send their video review ahead of time and the event creates this montage. This is the type of creativity that we are looking for and that is really required in translating your virtual event. There are some obstacles though. So the biggest obstacle in translating your in-person event into virtual is what we would call this fourth wall. So this screen right here, this computer screen becomes an obstacle. Guests in your virtual event cannot feel the presence of the person next to them. They can't wander around the venue meeting friends. They don't have a 360-degree view of what's happening in the room. This computer screen becomes a fourth wall in your experience, one that doesn't exist in your in-person events. We can break this fourth wall, and we're going to work through the theory of how and some ways to do it. Also, because the virtual event happens in this nebulous space, there's no bricks or mortars, no street addresses, no visualization of a location. People need substitutes to make it all make sense. They need these visual replacements of what they know about in person to help them see themselves at your virtual event. We'll explore some ways you can make these virtual locations real with substitutes. And then finally, there's literally no difference on timing and cost between your virtual event and your in-person event. That is why your virtual event becomes a very important tool in your strategy for community development, not just a tool to raise funds. Now, I know some of you right now are probably disappointed. Raising funds is a result of your virtual event. It's not the reason for your virtual event. And that's why one of the things I'm going to encourage everyone to do is drop words like auction from your event. And we'll find out why that's important as we get into the purpose and concept of design. So why is it that we think virtual events are so critical that you should hold on to them and do them all the time? Well, let's begin with unprecedented mission access. For most events, it's difficult to connect your community of supporters with your constituents in person. But in virtual, putting the community that's supporting you with the community you serve together authentically and personally becomes very easy and very fun. The opportunity to bring this donor and beneficiary together in a respectful and meaningful way restores and grows and anchors your community in ways that your in-person event rarely could do. Let me show you one way this happened to me recently. So this is an event I attended last Friday for an organization I support called Join the Journey. We invest in entrepreneurs in Zambia. What a wonderful surprise to us that this whole event was about connecting us with them live and in person. I'm going to just play this brief clip so that you can experience with me how the impact of having these people right here that we've invested in move.
So that was a short piece, Adam. Basically what they are saying is that God is blessing me. So let not anyone feel jealous of me because it is a doing of the Lord. It is God who is blessing me. So that's what the song was about. Okay, so one last cheers.
So that was the end of this event, but throughout the 30 minutes, we had these young men and women actually on screen interacting with us. We were asking questions, they were responding, we were getting to know them. That was amazing. So mission access that is unprecedented is the first reason we think virtual should stay in your toolkit of community development. But there are 8 other reasons, and we've developed a little infographic here. I'm not going to go into detail in all of them, but virtual helps you reduce your carbon footprint. It also reduces barriers such as mobility issues that people can't actually get there, or distance issues. One of our guests today, turns out that a participant in their event last week or the week before came from Costa Rica, right? It's efficient, scalable, and evergreen. You can restyle, reuse, you can build capacity, and this evergreen increases the return on investment for your sponsors, which I'm sure Daryl will tell you later on, they love. Educate entertainingly. In studies, 85% of attendees say they want to be educated at a virtual event, and 90% want to be entertained. Put those 2 things together. It reduces all of your logistic hassles. Imagine not having to worry about, is the banquet room available? Or how are we going to get the boxes there? Or I've worked in nonprofit 30 years. I know the week leading up to an event, you have all hands on deck. And what are they doing? Packing boxes, making signs. All of that's gone. Measurable ROI and data rich. Your data analysis on your event serves not only your sponsors to increase the value to them, but also yourself. You get great information that you could use in decision making. So notice that in this event, we don't mention fundraising again. I know this is so disappointing. Don't be disappointed. You certainly can have fundraising as part of your event, but please understand it is a byproduct of the event. It's a response to your event, showing your purpose and your impact. It's inspired by your why. And what is your why? Well, let's explore how your why is so important a place to start, and how you'll define it and use it for your virtual event planning and producing through concept design. I want to begin with a high-level understanding of starting with why. And I'm going to share a 1.5-minute video from Simon Sinek. He says it better than we ever could.
Probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, but very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. By why, I mean, what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? And why should anyone care? The inspired leaders and the inspired organizations all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this: we make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. That's how most marketing is done. That's how most sales is done. We say what we do. We say how we're different or how we better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe.
So concept design, that helps you by getting you to start with why, the purpose of your event. This then creates a pathway for your planning and production that thinks in terms of the participant and not you. Framing your event from all of your participants' perspective is a key concept to your success. I'm going to share this next screen and let Phil take it.
Thank you, Sondra. Hello, everybody. Yeah, that's so what the why of your audience, the why of your members, the why of people who give to your organization. That's what you need to understand. And in principles of design thinking, which we phrase as concept design, has to do with empathizing with the audience, empathizing with people who might come to your event, empathizing with your donors, empathizing with your staff that might have to run the event. There's a lot of different constituents and stakeholders to think about. So we have techniques to understand them, to create personas of the various people who might take part. Based on that, you move into a segment where you define the problem. What are the problems we're trying to solve here in terms of our virtual event, for instance? What are we trying to do? What do we want to accomplish, and so forth? Based on that, we generate some solutions. How might we create ideas. What can we do to solve these problems? And then we go into a next section, which is to prototype the ideas. And we create journey maps for various constituents about how they might come to our event. How do they get there? What do they do while they're there? What happens when they're done? And do it to a fair amount of detail. Then based on that, you actually come up with the solutions, the ideas of how you're going to solve the whole problem. And then you evaluate everything you've taken to that point. Empathize, definition, solutions, prototype. Does it make sense? We think that's going to work to the best we can tell. Now, if we were designing software, we would test it at that point. We really can't test an event. You could in a small way. So you have to do your best effort to evaluate, is this going to work? If you're ready to go, you go to the next phase, which Sondra will talk about next, or you iterate back to solve the problems you discovered as you got to the evaluation phase. For instance, you could get to the end, that doesn't make sense for the certain users. So you go back to the empathy part. Or you discover that we didn't really work on the problem we defined in the problems, so you go back to the problem part. Or you discover there's something wrong with one of your solutions you want to use, so you go back to the solutions part. And you iterate around to finally get to your evaluation when you're ready to move on and start building out all the various components and things you need to do to support your event. I should say that this concept of concept design can work for a lot of things that your organization does. It doesn't strictly have to be about event planning, but it really works out rather well. And you want to do this early on, very early in the process, because you're going to discover stuff as you go along. And we have someone we worked with recently who only, I think today, to say, we discovered there's a problem with one of our solutions. We're going to go back and redesign that. And their event is until December. So they're giving plenty of time to kind of work it through. So Sondra, that's sort of in a nutshell, the concept design. It can be a lot of fun, an interesting way to kind of think through your ideas and getting to a result that you feel you can move on with.
So Phil, this, and I've heard you say before, this whole concept design process can be done over 4 hours, or it can literally take 4 months if you're doing something maybe larger. What's the timing around this? And again, the essential nature of this, my understanding is that it creates the foundation for all the other decision making that you're going to do. Is that accurate?
Well, yes, it can. And back to what you said about how something take over a series a month. So there's a concept called agile development, where you pick off little pieces of your problem you want to solve. That by itself, you can solve the problem, come up with a solution, and move on. So at a very major, huge, let's say international event, there's probably small projects that you need to pick off and solve those problems. And that could take a series of months to put together. On the other hand, some events or some projects can be self-contained because it's a very clear-cut set of objectives and goals you want to get that you could really knock off in one of these sort of concept design sessions. The length of time depends on the complexity, and that's something we work with people on to figure out, what do you want to accomplish? What are your goals? And based on that, we determine the level of detail, how deep a dive do we have to take into the minutia of what you have to produce. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. And so, while I have a little break here from doing the slides, I've been looking through the chat, some really good questions. And I think a lot of it is very specific, but it can be general as well. I think the specific comes with the answers for your particular event will be defined in this concept design, right? So if you are saying, and I get this, I miss the warm feeling of the cocktail hour and seeing people I haven't seen for a while, drop that in the problem. What is it that you're looking to get from that, right? And help to create some solutions that might substitute for what it is that, or modify what it is that you get from that experience.
Right, exactly, Sondra. You phrased it very well. I mean, being more specific in terms of the kinds of issues that would come up around, the idea of substituting a virtual event. But it's really what can also emerge from this are new ideas, not trying to solve problems we think we're going to have, because we can't be live, but there are some new solutions that we could do because we are in a virtual event that maybe we couldn't do otherwise.
Yes. Yep. Another question is about how do we do historic tours, including house tours? That could be a lot of fun, actually. You could do a breakout room in the house, with a video, using video, do a theme of a breakout room. And while you're entertaining and gamifying this, you're actually giving them a tour of this house. I would definitely attend something like that.
I would love to be a camera operator. I would love to do that live because I've done a lot of video and film production.
Yep, that would be a lot of fun.
On live, I'll take you right through that house and give you a whole tour. That'd be huge. And have like the expert next to me describing what's going on.
That would be so much fun.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
So that's the type of ideation that comes from that concept design that we saw in this previous slide. From that base and from that discussion and strategy, you're going to get an awful lot to build, to construct, to produce, to create market and communications for your event. So that's the rest of your development will be driven by your concept design. And there's a number of outputs that will come from that concept design. So run of show with detail, who's doing what time, what materials and what medium for what reason, production schedule, timeline and delineation of video conference. Now, if you're already in the arts and you're already doing theater shows or musicals, you get this because this is what you've done before, right? But for those of us that aren't, this is a whole new language and a whole new expectation. One of the most important things is, again, substitutes. So as you're constructing and producing the content for your event, let's start with the most important substitute and visualization of your virtual event, and that is its space, okay? This link is not inspiring. So starting with your event on your website with just the name of your event, when it is, register here or access here is going to work against you. What you want to do is create a space that substitutes for your participants and gives them the visualization of the event. The details include lots of visuals, multidimensional, what works, maybe text, content, of course, links, pictures, fundraising goals, video clips, inspiring participation. You can create this easily with WordPress and Zoom. You don't need fancy software. You do need to think about some other construction tools. So if you're going to do your video playing yourself, if you have recorded video, which is fine, recorded or live, both work as long as it is authentic and intimate and interactive. You're going to need some video playing tools. You need e-commerce to get the registration in. Digital communication tools. How are you communicating with people? We're going to talk about that in the next slide. Data analysis. Remember, one of the things that you want to do is collect that data, graphics tools, and don't forget Wi-Fi, broadband. Make sure that you're hardwired in. Your server capacity, if you're going to have a lot of people. Camera, microphone. I have lighting. Not the best lighting. I have a new light coming. And then some other tips. Start strong. Please don't spend 10 minutes thanking everyone, including, the people who are putting it together. They should be thanked, but don't spend 10 minutes at the beginning thanking your sponsors and your committees and your people and doing housekeeping. Boring. Start strong. One of our clients is starting as soon as their loop ends. They have a drum corps that's going to be playing. I think that's really cool. Start with your mission. Use every minute. The loop at the beginning while people are waiting, use that to educate them. Tell them what you're raising funds for, where they need to go, and why you're doing it, your purpose. And think in short segments. Don't think in an hour-long segment. Little short pieces. Don't overproduce it. This is not Between Two Ferns. You are not in a TV studio. The whole value of intimacy in this experience and breaking down that fourth wall is having you close, right? Make it interactive, use chat, use Q&A, use polls. Fundraising is a continuum. Start at the beginning before your event even starts. Use it within your marketing and communication, have it on your event space, tie it directly to your purpose, give lots of calls to action during your event, and then the long tail of your event should include fundraising impact. Someone here had a question about what do we do afterwards? It seems like, okay, we're done. host a follow-up little gathering. Host a 30-minute gathering a week later to celebrate the success of the event and show the immediate impact of the funding that you raised on the project that you're working on. Don't skip your data analytics. Your sponsor will love you for it and you can use it. And then train your speakers and ask permission to record. Not everybody will give you their permission. They don't want their words being repeated. And also, not everybody's used to Zoom or video conferencing. Marketing communications. I know we're going fast, but there's so much to cover and we should go deeper and we don't have the time to. But ideally, you've given yourself plenty of time to plan for and launch communications and marketing campaign. You have two issues to contend with. Noise in the marketplace. Everyone is now doing a virtual event. And inspiring people to find you worthy of their time. This is where your purpose is going to drive success on both of those. Remember, Simon Sinek said, we don't want to sell to people just what we're doing. We want to sell to people that care about why we're doing it and our purpose. And that's really the key concept that you need to include in your virtual event, which is why I'm urging you not to put the word auction in your event. Have an auction. Have an auction over the week leading up to the event and then celebrate who won during the event. Do all of that, but don't make it the purpose of your event because you're not going to compete on that. So how do we define marketing and communication? Well, we get out our concept design again, and we use this logic model. And this is a great tool. Happy to send it to anybody that's interested. The logic model basically asks who, what, when, how, why, right? So for instance, in your concept design, you've uncovered no less than probably 5 audiences, right? Your audiences might include prospective guests, speakers, sponsors, constituent guests, but also registered participants. Once participants register, don't forget them, especially if your event, the day of event, relies on them being a part of fundraising. If they don't show up for your event, your fundraising is going to suffer. And we know from surveys, 35% of people who register don't show up. For instance, we had 40 people registered today. We have 25 participants. I think we're at I can't do the math that fast, but it's probably a 35% drop-off rate. You're going to have that. So work really hard to keep your registered participants engaged. You want them to show up, invite their network, expand the people participating. There's no barriers. They could come from Costa Rica. And give them a call to action so that when they feel philanthropic, they can respond. Give them information on how to access. Scott attended a webinar recently and webinar started at 10. He didn't get his access until 10:15. Make sure that they get it frequently. So many emails, people lose track. How to support you. And then of course, your appreciation. You'll see the timeline of communication gets much more frequent the closer you get. And how are you communicating? Try to make it as automated as possible. When you're building your website for your event, make sure it has a communication, an e-communication tool in it somehow. You don't want the hassle of having to continually download registrants, placing them into Constant Contact or MailChimp, sending them information, downloading the next set. Way too much time and resources devoted to that. And then finally, don't forget who is responsible for this. So listen, we have really pushed through this quickly. That's a short version of what might turn out to be a full week-long course, folks. And if you're interested in that, we definitely can pull that together. Final thoughts before we invite our guests in to speak on their experience on our second half. You're competing against a host of other virtual events right now. To stand out and to deliver to your community, you must start with why. Make it entertaining and educational, easy to visualize and to participate in. And most importantly, have fun with this.
I just came up with another bright idea. I am so